So 5 proven ways for a healthy brain. So what do we know? Well, one of the things I can tell you is when the brain ages, a lot of people used to think that as the brain ages, it gets worse and worse and it slows down more and more, and there's not much you can do about it. And we've learned that you can do something about it. The brain also can change and continue to develop. It's the concept of what's called neuroplasticity. So if you've never heard the term neuroplasticity, it means the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is that there are these little chemicals in your brain called neurons. They're chemical messengers. So when neurons shoot off, they tell you they tell your brain what to do. So like when you take a step, when you walk, it's because neurons are shooting out and telling yourself to take a step. Now, you don't think about it because your neural pathway, these connections are so strong because you've done it for so long, you don't have to think about it. But if you've ever been around a toddler who learns to walk, when they take their first step, their second step usually causes them to fall. And then they get up and take another step and a second step, and then they fall and they get up. And eventually it starts to become a little more normal. That's because the neurons are firing and they're getting thicker and thicker. Just like when someone has a brain accident and they lose the ability to walk and they have to relearn to walk again, that's because that neuronal connection got cut. So neuroplasticity says, even though the brain gets older, we can still create these new pathways. And that's very important, particularly because of the concept called cognitive resilience. Cognitive resilience refers to the ability to overcome negative effects or stress on cognitive functioning, cognitive as far as the brain. That's what I'm referring to. So when you're trying to get a healthy brain, what you're really trying to do is build cognitive resilience. And the question becomes, okay, so how can I build cognitive resilience? How can I protect my brain from things that are going to make it age and make it worse off and make it not perform like it should? And that's what we're going to be looking at. So if you look at current brain research, and one of the things I find interesting, if you're from Texas, and I'm from Dallas actually, so that's why I say particularly Dallas-Fort Worth area, DFW area, it's actually, there's a major hub of research going on around here on brain health and dementia and Alzheimer's. Really kind of interesting. But truthfully, this research is going on worldwide. And so the key is to kind of tap into that research, the people that are researching it without a financial interest, so that they can tell you, what are we proving? And even some of the stuff I'm going to talk about today, it doesn't mean that if it's not on this list, it doesn't work. It just means it hasn't been proven yet. Though some of the stuff's been shown, it doesn't work. And I'll share some of that with you too. So if you look at current global research, there seems to be agreement on 5 things to keep your brain healthy. Okay, so that's what I found when I did my research. Then I followed that up with, I took a course with a major university brain researcher, and they did a course on preventing dementia, on how to keep a healthy brain. And sure enough, they had the same 5 things. Now, I'm feeling good about this presentation too, because I read an article recently that if you've heard of Dr. Sanjay Gupta, if you haven't, he is the medical expert for CNN. He's also kind of the celebrity medical expert. Like if Oprah did a special on a health thing, she would get Sanjay Gupta. He's like the go-to guy on the news. He did a book recently because he's also an author. And his most recent book is on brain health. He decided to look into brain health. And guess how many things he came up with? 5 things he found are working. And so what you're going to hear is the same stuff. So if you decide, I think I'm going to read Sanjay Gupta's book, all you're going to see is you're going to get way more elaboration on what I'm going to be telling you about. So I'm giving you the really tiny version of what his book's going to be talking about. So in no particular order, number 1 on the list is exercise. Now, what I tell you about exercise in particular, what we're looking at is that anything good for the heart tends to be good for the brain. Not necessarily vice versa, but anything good for the heart tends to be good for the brain. And our research shows that heart-lung fitness keeps the brain healthy as people get older. Also, it promotes neuroplasticity, what we were talking about earlier. And, you know, there's the side benefit of getting in better shape with exercise allows for improved movement, less likelihood for falls. So if we're looking at exercise, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to recommend, and most experts will recommend aerobic exercise. If you don't know what aerobic exercise is, it's anything that is increases the heart rate on a sustained basis. So like, I like to play basketball or pickleball or tennis. Those are not aerobic because you start and you stop, you start and you stop. That's not aerobic. Aerobic would be like walking, probably the best exercise you can do aerobically. But I talk to seniors a lot, and sometimes the seniors I talk to, walking isn't an option. Either their balance is off, so it's risky, or they're in a wheelchair, so they can't walk. Doesn't mean you can't do something aerobic. It means you need to move. You can do chair exercises where your body's in constant movement. Anything that moves your heart rate up from a resting state. The experts recommend 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. I would say 30 minutes a day every day if you can fit it in. But the general recommendation is 150 minutes per week, which is in essence 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. I would say 30 minutes a day, 7 days a week, if at all possible. So exercise. Exercise is number one on my list. And actually, if I got a group of experts and I asked them, you can only pick one, what's the one you're going to pick? It's probably going to be exercise. I haven't read anything that's critical of suggesting exercise is good for the brain. So exercise, number one on my list of 5 things for a healthy brain. Okay. The most controversial one on this list is going to be social activities. Staying socially engaged may support brain health. Pursuing social activities that you enjoy and surrounding yourself with friends and community is a good idea. The reason it's not the most widely accepted of the 5 is because when they do research only on social activities and brain health, they're having trouble making that connection. But the interesting thing is, and why a lot of the experts will include it on their list, is that when they look at multiple factors, and social activities is in the group of multiple factors, it's always in the group that the people that are in the group doing social activities and other things always are having better results with brain health, always. So if you look at the World Health Organization list on what to do, they're going to put social activities in their list of may help, not definitely help, but may help. I'm going to include it on here, and most experts, I think, are probably going to go along with social activities, which makes actually a lot of sense to me, because when you're engaging socially, you're using a lot of things, a lot of brain processes, right? You're using processing speed. Processing speed is, and I find this very interesting when I work with seniors, I've often asked seniors, are you noticing any issues with processing speed? And virtually everyone says, no problems at all. Then I give them the example. Have you ever noticed that when you're talking to people and they say something, it takes you longer than it used to think about what you want to say next? And they go, oh yeah, see, that's processing speed. So I'd probably estimate about 80% of the seniors that we work with probably have some level of processing speed issues. That's pretty normal. So processing speed you need in a conversation. In fact, I had a client once who said he didn't like to talk at dinner with a group of people because by the time he thought about what he wanted to say, someone else would jump in. So he just gave up. Processing speed. Now, if I'm engaging in a conversation with someone, I need my short-term memory. I need to remember what we're talking about. I might need long-term memory if I'm trying to remember who I'm talking to if I already know them. I might need my deductive reasoning skills, or I need my my ability to focus, so I'm not distracted by the people talking around me while I'm engaging in a conversation. So I really like the idea of doing social activities. And when you if you're a senior living in a senior living community, I'm always a big proponent of trying different events in the community to meet new people, because meeting new people is actually going to challenge you more. And challenging yourself, as we're going to talk about later, is a really good thing for the brain, for the brain's health. Hold it. I'll just get my whole list up here because I screwed up. I made a last minute change and I didn't check it. Okay, so first thing is exercise. Second thing on my list is social activities. Third thing is what they call brain foods. Brain foods. Okay, so what are these brain foods? Well, at the top of my list here on this page is berries, specifically blueberries and strawberries. And if I had to pick one easily, it's blueberries. Fresh blueberries, probably if you ask an expert that knows nutrition and brain health, that very well may be the number one food they'll give you if they only got to pick one, fresh blueberries. Now, I always say fresh blueberries because that doesn't mean I'm telling you to go eat a lot more blueberry pie or blueberry ice cream. Bad idea for it. Because remember, that's not good for the heart. Good for the heart, good for the brain. Fresh blueberries, good for you. Another good food, probably the most likely if they're not saying blueberries, is salmon. But it's fatty fish because they're loaded with omega-3 fatty acids. Really good for the heart, really good for the brain. They usually recommend salmon over tuna and other fatty fish because tuna tends to be high in mercury. You can't eat too much, otherwise it'll create a problem. You don't want to create a problem when you're trying to get a healthy brain. But salmon's a really good food. And if you look at senior living communities, virtually all of them are offering salmon. In fact, when they have a permanent menu and a daily menu, usually salmon's on the permanent menu, which it should be actually. Salmon, great food. When I looked at the current research from Harvard, they're talking about walnuts, excellent source of protein, healthy fat, but it's showing signs of being really good for memory. And so that's a really good thing, walnuts. Vitamin K rich foods like broccoli, kale, and spinach are showing good, in research, are showing good to be slowing cognitive decline. So my mom really wants me to mention broccoli to you. I wouldn't eat it, but if you do, it's really good for you. Fresh fruits and vegetables tend to be good overall. They're very good for the heart. Remember, good for the heart, good for the brain. And then the last one I put on here, which is really kind of the surprising one on there, is dark chocolate. Have you heard that dark chocolate's good for your brain? See, I find that fascinating. There's something about it that are showing, and it's because it's more pure. It doesn't have as much sugar, but they will say dark chocolate's in limited amounts. So I don't want you to, the next time the Girl Scouts come knocking at your door, to buy a box of Thin Mint cookies, eat the whole thing that day and say, see, I'm trying to take care of my brain. It doesn't work that way. But if you do buy Thin Mints from them, put it in the freezer. They're so much better frozen. Now, me personally, I wish it was milk chocolate that was good for the brain because I'd have the healthiest brain out there, but it's not. It's dark chocolate. So if you kind of like dark chocolate, maybe having a piece or two a day, not a bad idea for the brain. So brain health foods. Okay, so we've got three things so far. We've got exercise, most widely approved one of the five. Number two, the least approved of the ones, the social activities. And three, brain healthy foods, or what they call brain foods. Okay, so what's number four on our list? Now remember, all of this is in Dr. Gupta's book, I'm telling you. Number four, take care of your health. That's probably not a surprising one. Taking care of your health, very important. Therefore, healthy heart leads to healthy brain. I've been telling you that. Therefore, keep these things in mind. What do we need to look for? Get enough sleep. That's the key takeaway on taking care of your health from Gupta, is get enough sleep. With seniors in particular, that's a real challenge. Now, a lot of people will say, what's enough sleep? Good question. Usually they'll say, 7 to 8 hours, but that may be a real challenge as you get older. As I'm getting older, it's much more challenging, I'm finding. But here's a real key thing that a lot of them aren't talking about. Probably more important than how long you sleep overall is whether you're getting enough REM sleep. REM, R-E-M, rapid eye movement sleep. So if you've never heard of REM sleep, when you go into a deep sleep at night, assuming you're going to sleep at night, if you go into a deep sleep at night, you eventually get into a stage where your eye starts to like little twitching, and they termed it rapid eye movement. And it's a phase where a level of deep sleep where your brain starts to reorganize, get cleaned out. Things that are in short-term memory that need to be moved into long-term get moved over there. Things sometimes get reorganized. It's kind of your brain's way of regenerating itself and reorganizing it and getting ready for the next day when you wake up. So that part is really important. And why that's important is if you are telling me you're getting 8 hours sleep and you're doing good, but you're getting 8 hours because you're napping 3 hours a day and you're only getting 5 hours regular sleep. And I got someone else who's not napping at all, but getting 6 hours of sleep at night. I'd rather the 6 hours than the 8 because they're getting more REM sleep. That's why it's so important. So limiting naps for seniors becomes an important thing because they get tired, they want to go to sleep. I get that. But if you get too many naps, you're not going to be tired at night and you're not going to stay in a deep sleep. When you fall asleep at night, you don't go right into REM sleep. It takes a little while to get into it, maybe an hour or 2 hours, whatever. It takes a little while. You need the deep sleep. That's what's so important for you. You also need to be aware of sleep apnea for people that are having trouble staying asleep at night. Sometimes they don't even realize they have a condition called sleep apnea, which deprives the brain of oxygen. Usually, a lot of times people will get it checked out because they're big time snorers. That's sometimes a sign of sleep apnea. I can't tell you more about it. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a clinical social worker. But sleep apnea is a definite condition you need to be aware of, and it interferes with REM sleep. So getting enough sleep. Another thing, keeping your weight down. Good for the heart, good for the brain. Keeping your weight down. There's a lot of benefits for the brain. Third thing on my list, stop smoking. I always feel funny telling people stop smoking because surely if you're a smoker, you've heard this almost all the years you've been smoking. I can't imagine me telling you, if you want a healthy brain, you need to stop smoking. We'll do it for you. But if it will, I'm going to tell you, there are clear studies showing that smoking causes plaques in the brains, and that's a really bad thing. In fact, in the research in Alzheimer's, they're really concerned about plaque. So you got to be concerned about smoking. The interesting research in the last 5 years is they started looking at high blood pressure and high cholesterol and whether there was a link to brain health issues. And they've actually done a really good job with it, and they found a connection. So if you find you have high blood pressure, you need to treat it. And if you have high cholesterol, you need to treat it. One way of treating it is get your weight down. Another way is medication or whatever the doctor tells you to do. Once again, I'm not a medical doctor, but I am telling you the research is they've made a connection between high blood pressure and brain health issues and high cholesterol and brain health issues. So you want to keep them both in check. Not surprisingly, diabetes is also associated with brain health issues. So if you have diabetes, you want to be treating it and keeping it under control and not ignoring it because that creates a multitude of health problems, including brain health issues. And then, of course, whenever I'm talking about seniors, I want to make sure that they know to stay hydrated. That's for anybody, of course. But when you start having memory issues, you also forget to drink enough. And as a result, we see higher levels of dehydration with seniors with brain health issues. So staying hydrated becomes important. That's why you'll probably know if you've been in senior living communities, you're going to see water stations everywhere, and there should be. And they should be encouraging them to drink water. That's very important. Of course, probably not surprising, I'm a mental health practitioner. I'm going to tell you to take care of your mental health too. And I have reason too. There are studies that are linking a history of depression with an increased risk of cognitive decline. And I can tell you that depression, anxiety, and some other mental health concerns are just not good for the brain. They just aren't. And that comes along with managing stress. And you've probably heard of a lot of different things people are trying to improve brain health by managing stress. You know, whether that be meditation, that if you're in the meditation room, okay, so there's that connection there, right? But it's all really about taking care of mental health and that there's a definite connection there. In fact, recent studies are showing positive results for brain health with meditation and listening to soothing music. It's about lowering your stress level. It really is. Okay, so number 1, exercise. Number 2, social interaction. Number 3, brain foods. And number 4, take care of your health. Now, the cool thing is that most senior living communities handle these 4 things. That's the good thing. Problem is, they're not nearly doing enough for the 5th thing. 5th thing is challenging cognitive activities. Now, in telling you that, I'm telling you that I'm not just talking about a cognitive activity, like a crossword puzzle, something that you have to really think to do well in, right? I'm talking about a challenging cognitive activity. So if for instance, you're doing cognitive activities, but they're not too hard for you, they're fun, but that's not what they're telling you is good for the brain. That you need to be challenged. The challenging part is having short and long-term benefits for your brain. And that's really what my company does, emphasizes is working with seniors, providing them challenging cognitive activities. So I've done a lot of this work, and I can tell you absolutely it's having definite positive effects, and that's why it's so important. So one of the most common ones when people are like, well, what are you referring to? Like computer games. There are a lot of computer games on the market, like Lumosity tends to be the one that's most advertised that people have recognized when I mention it. And these computer games are typically developed by neuropsychologists, and they have all these different games that challenge your memory and processing speed and concentration, deductive reasoning, and all that stuff. And they're good. But here's the kicker. The research says that when you do it by yourself, it doesn't tend to be effective. I find that very interesting because in communities where they have these games, a lot of them are what they're doing is they're saying they're taking care of their residents' cognitive health. But the research says the games aren't good enough. Now, you ask the communities and they're going to tell you the people said they have research to support it. Of course they do. They have a financial interest in the research. Is the research supporting it that has nothing to do with the company that's selling it? Is someone has no vested financial interest researching it and telling you? Because I'll tell you, the global research says it's not effective. Why? It's not challenging enough. Why? Because people want to win the game. It's human nature to want to win. So you don't want to so people don't challenge themselves enough. Because they want to win, they don't challenge themselves enough. So remember, it's challenging cognitive activities. But the good news is research shows that if you have someone work with them to walk them through the games, those tend to be effective. See, that's what we do. That's why I know about it. Now, why is that a difference? Well, here's why. What I'll do with someone is I'll find a game that they'll like, working on a skill that they need help with. Now, doing something they're already good at, that doesn't help. Trying to challenge them. So let's say you're having trouble with visual short-term memory. So I can find a computer game that works on visual short-term memory, right? And then I'm going to make it at a certain difficulty level to where you can get a perfect score. Good for you. Feel good about it. Then I'm going to take it a little harder. And you won't be able to get a perfect score. That makes it a challenging cognitive activity. Now, if I let you keep playing it, eventually you're going to get that perfect score. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it just a little harder again. It's pushing you out is the difference maker. It takes it from a cognitive activity to a challenging cognitive activity. Most people, human nature, they don't challenge themselves enough in these games. That's why they tend to not actually be effective. It's not the game isn't effective. It's doing them by yourself isn't effective. You need someone who will push you to do that. That's where it becomes a challenging cognitive activity. Now, sometimes people are like, okay, what else should I be doing? Particularly if I don't have access to that computer thing or I hate computers. Oh, well, by far, learn something new. Learning new things is by far what I would tell you to do. If you say I can only give you one challenging activity, that's it. Your challenging cognitive activity is go learn something new. And the research is really interesting. It's virtually anything. So here's some ideas on things you can learn about. If you're a senior, I'm going to tell you technology. And the reason why, and I already see some smiles on the other side. The reason why is that the generation that followed me, my children's generation, that's all they've known is technology. To them, it's second nature. It's so simple to them. They're like, why is this hard for you? Because we didn't grow up with it, is why. My generation, see, when I went to college, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, when I went to college, what you would see in this little phone, the processing ability of this little phone, right? To get something comparable would be a computer that would start on one end of the room and go the whole other end of the room. And I'd tell you, this phone probably still has better processing speed than that computer did. And that was me in college. So I was getting introduced to it as an adult, technology. Okay. Now, take my parents' generation, the ones that are living in the senior living communities. They didn't know it as a kid, and they didn't probably know it as an adult. It probably started showing up toward their later years of their career, where they didn't want anything to do with it. They didn't want to mess with it. So that's the challenging part about it. It's foreign to them. But the cool thing about it is it opens up a whole new world to them. And that's where I tell them, it's like, I understand you don't want to deal with technology, and I get it, and it's hard, but it's the hard that makes it good for your brain. And the payoff is anything you want from your past is probably on that computer. I mean, you can pull up old TV shows from your childhood on there, pull up music from your childhood. You can do most anything that you can pull up on a computer. You can talk to people all over the world, and it won't cost you a cent if you have access to a computer. You know, I'm talking to my best friend in Australia. It used to cost me a fortune. I would have never done that. Now it doesn't cost me anything. I get on an app, and she's 13 hours ahead of me. We just got to make it the right time. Or I have a family reunion, and we do it on Zoom, and everyone pops in from all over the country. I got people anywhere from New York to Hawaii popping up on these things. It's cool. Or we're watching TV and I'm Zooming with my brothers as we're talking about what we're watching on TV. It's a fun event, you know? You can do most anything. It's really cool. Music, you can have it virtually anytime. You know, you can get the Alexa to play music. You know, so the person who's alone and feels alone and isolated, you can teach them how to use Alexa. All of a sudden, they can do all sorts of things. You know, I can have Alexa sing me happy birthday, tell me stupid jokes, you know, play Elton John songs, whatever I want them to do, you know. And if I want Alexa to speak a different language or have an accent, I can do that too, or change gender, you know, whatever you want. It's really kind of cool. So it's just opening them up to all the different things. You got to find out what their interest is and then show them how technology can expand their access to it a great deal. So teach them technology. Great idea. Okay, what's another one? This is the one that's hard for a lot of people, but I'm a big believer in learn a new language or relearn a language you wanted to know. Now, there is no reason with technology today that you should go to your deathbed saying, I wish I had learned how to speak whatever the language is, because you can now. Once you learn technology, like the one I put on the screen is duolingo.com. It's one of several free apps you can find online. They'll teach you a language. They'll use different activities, different games, whatever, to teach you the language. It's really cool. You know, so I had a client once that when I got into her background, she used to work as a interpreter, interpreting for French and Spanish. And I go, so you were fluent in both? She goes, yeah. I go, do you still speak them? She goes, oh no, I haven't spoken them in forever. I go, do you miss it? She goes, I don't miss Spanish. I never liked Spanish, but I miss speaking French. Now, here's me who's never taken a French class in his life. And what do? I help her relearn French. How? I get her on duolingo.com. They have a French app. We're relearning French. So I'm learning it for the first time while she's relearning it. Is that challenging for her? Yeah. Now, what's the resistance a lot of people have to it? Because they think about when they last learned a language. It was probably in a classroom. They were being graded. They had tests. Their teacher would scold them if they didn't do well, or their parents would scold them if they didn't study hard or do well. Okay, take all that pressure off. It doesn't exist anymore. I don't care how fast or slow you learn it, just that you try and learn it now. Now, here's a really cool thing. I don't know if it's on all the other ones, but it is on Duolingo. If you're a Star Trek fan, you can learn how to speak Klingon. It's a made-up language that was in the series, and they've got it on Duolingo. So if you're a real science fiction fan, particularly a Trekkie, you know, you can learn to speak Klingon. And it would be really fun if you Now, is Sudoku by itself a challenging cognitive activity? No, it's a cognitive activity. So how is it a challenging cognitive activity? Well, when you learn it for the first time, it's going to be a challenge. Then Sudoku has 5 different levels of difficulty, 5 stars. So a beginner is a 1-star player. So once you learn how to play and you get good at whatever level you're on, let's say you're a level 1 person, level 1's not challenging cognitive activity anymore. Now you need to go up to level 2. Or get someone who's a higher level player to teach you their strategies. See, that's what I've done. I'm a 4-level player. I had a client who was a 3-level player. I was teaching her my strategies that she didn't know. I just made up names for them, the diagonal method, and I'd say, okay, explain to me what the diagonal method is after I taught it to her the week before. And I'm like, okay, here's a puzzle. I see 3 ways in the first top 3 rows you can use the diagonal method. Point them out to me. See, that's challenging her. That's why it's a challenging cognitive activity. So like right now, if I do a 4-star Sudoku puzzle, it's a cognitive activity. It's not a challenging one. If I went to 5 stars, that would be challenging for me. But it's interesting. There's actual research showing that learning digital photography, learning quilting, learning is good for the brain. It's not what it is. It's the learning something new. That becomes the key thing. So challenging yourself cognitively, that's the key thing. And that is my 5th thing that I am giving you for today. So that's my contact information. I already posted it in the chat if you want it. I do work for a company called Inspire, working to enhance the lives of seniors in senior living communities. Okay, that's my presentation. I'm sticking with it. I'm going to end my screen sharing, stop share. Boom. And I'm going to look in the chat, and here's a chance to get on here and I'll answer questions. So let's start with, let's see, Catherine said salmon should be wild caught. Yeah, probably so. I would say that's probably true. I don't know that to be a definite, but it sounds right. If you look at a walnut, it mimics the shape of the brain. Nature, that's very good, Catherine. That's true also. Melissa Smith says about dark chocolate. She talks about a book by Dr. Mosconi. She says about the high concentration of cocoa in it. Yeah, I was saying dark chocolate is a purer form of chocolate. My child, when she was in like 3rd or 4th or 5th grade, did a science project on types of chocolate. I found it fascinating. Of course, it's still what I learned from that was I don't like pure chocolate. It's milk chocolate. I love milk chocolate. So dark chocolate covered walnuts would be great by Troy. Yes. Yeah, I like that. There you go. I like that. Very good. Okay. Anyone else have any questions? If so, unmute yourself, jump in, and we'll see. Is canned salmon as good as fresh? Good question, Wanda. I don't know. That's a good question. When I looked at the research on salmon, when I heard people talking about it, they really didn't differentiate between fresh and canned or whatever. They didn't look, I've never seen any mention of the difference. I have with blueberries, always saying fresh blueberries. I haven't seen the difference with salmon. My guess would be the fresher it is, the better it is, the purer it is, the better it is. But I don't know for sure. I can tell you for sure. Anyone else have any questions? Oh, can we have your information again? Okay, I can put it up on.
Let me copy and paste it. I think I saw it in the chat. I can.
It was on the chat. You're going to copy and paste it, Darn?
Yep, I got it.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. Thank you. Yeah. So from my end, if you have any questions about brain health, I'd be happy to answer. And then I'm going to put a little plug in. Sorry if I wasn't supposed to do this, but I'm on a mission. My mission is to improve the mental health and brain health of seniors living in senior living communities across the country. If you have a relationship with an administrator, someone who works for one of these places, I would love an email introduction. That's all I need. I don't cold call anyone because they hate cold calls. But I would love an email introduction saying, I saw this presentation of this guy named Ron, whose company works in senior communities. You might want to talk to him and put me as a CC on there, and I'll take over from there. But I would love to come if you've got loved ones in a community or have a community of a relationship with, and you think they might want something. I don't care if it's from me or someone else. I really don't. They're just not enough. These communities don't have, if they have challenging cognitive activities at all, it's usually in a group. We do it one-on-one. And a lot of times what they're doing one-on-one is not the right stuff. Like in an independent living community where long-term memory and word retention usually is it's not an issue. That's an issue with people with dementia. Independent living, you usually don't see that much dementia. So giving them word finds and crossword puzzles, it's a cognitive activity. If they're doing it for fun, that's fine. But if they're doing it because they want to make sure people are addressing brain health issues, it's the wrong activity. And they just don't know that. And that's okay. That's where we come in. The manager of assisted living in Highlands, Texas. Okay, Valerie, you need to get my email address. You need to reach out to me. We'd love to talk to you. Anyone else have any?
Oh, sorry. I was just thinking of a couple other activities to help with the cognitive. So would you say that learning a new instrument would be a good one?
Oh, absolutely. Anything that challenges you in learning, anything learning new that challenges you. I tell people what's really could be cool is getting someone that knows how to do something, having them teach you. Okay. Now, if you get someone with dementia, that's a really good activity for them because that's long-term memory to have them teach you. But if you're like, well, where am I going to get someone to teach me? Find out from your friends if they know how to do anything that you don't know how to do that you'd have an interest in. Have them teach you. Particularly when I say technology with seniors, I'm like, get your grandkids to teach you stuff. It's second nature to them. Plus, then they'll visit you, but they'll get a kick out of it. If not, get your kids to teach you. They probably already know how to do stuff anyway. And if not, there are different places, that could potentially offer classes if you can get them to them. I'm not sure the pandemic has shut a lot of that down. Or get volunteers somewhere where they can bring a volunteer to come teach you. Or if you live in a senior living community, tell your activities coordinator to have classes on technology or anything else you want to learn. I was in a community where one of the residents knew how to weave. He offered weaving classes to the people in that community. See, that's a really good, and it's a challenging thing. See, like going to a lecture. A lecture is a cognitive activity. Telling someone tomorrow what you learned in that lecture is a challenging cognitive activity. That's the difference there. Or learning something in the lecture and then putting it to use, that's the challenging part. Just hearing it, learning new, no, you got to do something with it. And so if I learn something new and forget it tomorrow, that's not the learning new I'm talking about. I'm talking about being able to repeat what I've learned beyond that first day or put it into use, like learning how to do a Sudoku puzzle. And then the next day I'm doing Sudoku puzzles, or speaking a language that I'm just learning. That's what I'm talking about. Joe, saw your address. If you would please contact me. My email's out there. So one of them put, what about turmeric? I believe, I'd have to look it up, but I believe the research says it's that they haven't proven, and they are not standing behind it as a source. Because I read about different seasonings and chemicals and stuff that people are saying yes. I think that was one of the ones that I read is the research is not standing behind it at this point. Though I've read a lot of people saying yes. Once again, who are the people saying yes? And are they objective or do they have a financial interest? But I'm not positive about that, but I believe that's what I read. Anyone got anything else?
I just have another activity suggestion when you talked about the weaving.
Yeah.
Knitting is a really fun one, I think. I learned how to knit when I was younger, but haven't done it in a while, so I'd probably have to relearn it. And I know there's lots of different patterns you can learn and different stitches. So I just thought that was a good one too.
Yeah, well, I put quilting. Yeah, so knitting, quilting. It's anything that'll challenge you. It really is. Anything that'll challenge you at all. Yeah.
And Ron, you can go on YouTube and find tons of things.
Yeah. Yeah, and people that'll teach you. Like when you said learn a new instrument, go on YouTube. They'll teach you the instrument. That's really cool. Or my current challenging activity is I'm a lead singer of a band. Every time I add a new song, it's learning the lyrics and then knowing them the next time I get out without looking at them. For me, that's the challenging piece. I'm working on, getting those words down, particularly as with every song I add, it's even more challenging because I got to remember the other songs. And now I have the new song to do too. Yeah. Well, that's what I got for you.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I think music is a really fun one. I also play piano. I learned that when I was younger too. Again, maybe have laxed a little bit in these few years.
I'm sorry, I already have a keyboard player in my band.
Oh darn. If anyone at home has any more questions or final thoughts or anything, we'll probably be wrapping up here in just a couple of minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Oh, and I think we lost you.
She froze.
Ah.
Anna, try it again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
What is the quantity of the brain foods that you should consume on a daily or a weekly basis?
I don't know that I've ever seen in any of the research them talking about how much. I just think it's about, incorporating it into your regular diet. If you got a bowl of fresh blueberries that you snack on, probably a great idea. Making sure you're getting fresh fruits and vegetables, good. People talk about the Mediterranean diet because it's a good heart diet, good for the heart, good for the brain. Okay. I don't think I've ever read where they're saying this is how much you need to do, because then you're getting into, it's too stressful to go, oh, am I getting enough? I wouldn't worry about that. Those were the foods, primarily blueberries, salmon, walnuts, dark chocolate, broccoli, spinach, kale, vegetables, fresh fruits, vegetables overall. All good. The more you put it into your diet, the better.